This next slide is one of the most interesting slides, I think, for everyone to absorb. This particular slide is My People Are Idiots, ASD are Insensitive slide, an exact scenarios that I've actually experienced in the past year as I learned, in fact, that there was such a thing as a neurotypical culture. You have to keep in mind as you absorb these scenarios that many adults and many teenagers who are getting diagnosed as teenagers, in fact, have to first wrap their head around the fact that there is a different culture, and I have never seen it presented necessarily as a different culture. Basically, all I see is documentation, training material that states that we're wrong for thinking the way we think. I see a lot of resistance as a result of that from ASD people to adopting or embracing different ways. And it actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it. I had a prominent autism specialist talk to me this weekend about how the autistic people in her clinic knew very, very well what they wanted from her with respect to how she needs to treat them, but did not know how to treat her and provide to her. So my contention with her, in fact, was that she did not actually take the perspective of the autistic person either, and instead and the result of that is that we had a break in theory of mind on both sides of the autistic person as well as the neurotypical person. And the following are some examples of how this unfolds. An NT person may tell me that he is terse. For 48 years, I've been told I've been terse. And it wasn't until just this weekend that I learned that that means offensive or insensitive, creepy, perhaps, and maybe neutral at best. In my mind, terse is a good thing because it saves time. And I've always wondered why people got mad at that, because I thought it was in fact the more correct and polite way to do it. So the NT thinks that I might be insensitive. I think they're an idiot. The result is a cultural misunderstanding. There's breakdowns in theory of mind, perspective taking on both sides happening here. You have to remember the difference is that I'm getting hammered continually throughout my life. So my people are idiots mode is more ingrained, whereas they get at least some confirmation or affirmation of their selves and who they are, and their way of thinking. Once I learned that this curse word was not necessarily a good thing, it became easier for me to at least start thinking about why isn't it a good thing, and maybe haven't quite yet addressed exactly how to take care of that, but certainly I can now make movements towards it. And the neurotypical person, once they understand that terse for me is the polite way, can potentially also drop some pretense and communicate with me in that way. Another thing that I get hammered for very, very often is a neurotypical person might be angry or sad. I'll leave them alone. I leave them alone because that's exactly what I would want done for me. The neurotypical person would potentially think that I'm insensitive, and I would not understand why that is the case, because that's exactly how I would want to be handled when I'm angry. So I think they're acting randomly, and they're an idiot. They think I'm insensitive. Again, theory of mind breakdowns on both sides. How do we handle those? How do we treat one another? When I'm angry or sad, leave me alone. And when you are angry and sad, I can try to offer some words, but I cannot necessarily feel. For you, I can give you creature comforts, and I'll be happy to do that. But the point is that we can talk that through, and understand that I'm not insensitive. I care very deeply. I just don't know how to console when somebody is upset. In a conversation, the NT person is visibly upset uh, after we have been talking. So we might be talking day to day, everything's good, and all of a sudden the person blows. Um, what happens here oftentimes, and of course the NT thinks that I'm insensitive. I think they're angry. What the heck just happened? We were just discussing good stuff. And I think they're acting randomly and they're an idiot. But what really happens here is the emotions are starting to come forward in this person who was talking in my style originally, and I was unaware of that. Again, here it's not a matter of me taking perspective per se. It's a matter of me not understanding how to read emotions, and this would be a way that you might try to work with a person. NT person requires a meeting with ASD person. There's no agenda. The agenda is getting to know. The neurotypical person thinks that they're being nice. I'm upset. I don't want this meeting. I think that it's a waste of time. They think I'm insensitive. I think he's being rude. It's a waste of my time. I can find out. I can get to know people online. And again, we have a conclusion that is not necessarily true on either side. We have mutual misunderstandings. We have a breakdown of theory of mind on either side, or empathy or perspective taking on either side. And again, this is probably the one that I get hammered for the most in my life, is there's this great, joyous occasion. I don't jump into that level of emotion. That ASD person is being insensitive because they don't share my joy. I just don't know how to do this. And I don't understand why they're mad at me for not sharing that. I think they're random. I think they're an idiot. Again, here, if you have ASD as an entry point into your relationship, you might understand that the emotions and the emotion scales aren't exactly the same. In fact, here's my personal emotion picture. You can see that I have an emotion regulation line right here. This emotional regulation line is pretty much my okay, not okay line, and it's something I call regulation because I think that these two emotions, happy and sad, which are binary, by the way, I'm either happy or sad, and I'm always okay, happy or sad. They're never out of control. It's never anything that feels that I can't just kind of reel it in. And also, mind you, I spent most of my life in this white area. Is unaware. I think a lot of us do. A lot of us do spend time in this, and I think that neurotypicals who are in professionals actually do understand this. These two emotions, anger and fear, these are the ones that I don't feel I have emotional regulation over, and those actually have these levels here. I'll feel off most of the time, but I can't articulate it. Here for sure, I know I'm going to have a meltdown, and then it eventually goes into what is a meltdown, and that's just an intense mixture of fear, anger, and other emotions that completely confuse me. And sometimes that's why sometimes there's laughter when there's absolutely nothing funny in this. So, if you take the neurotypical emotional model, you'll see that it looks more similar to this one, where all four of the emotions happen to have various ranges, probably many more depths of this. I haven't even filled this one in yet, the terror scared one yet. And if you look at the complication of that model versus my model, which is very, very simple, it's very easy to see where we get this randomness of the emotional mind that happens, that we think happens oftentimes. Here is what I was talking about. When I talk to a neurotypical person, oftentimes we'll see this emotional level of okay down here, this happy. I think unaware is not correct here. I think but it's a similar thing. I think maybe it's just okay. So we have this okay line anyway down here. And then all of a sudden, at some point, the emotions start to take over in the conversation. And I have to be trained to hit this, to see this somewhere here, because if I do not see this somewhere here, they're going to end up at this point, this mad at me point. Oops, this mad at me point. And that's when, that's when I used to be confused. Now I know, hey, I just missed this. These guys were in fact having an emotional moment because they're more emotional human beings. Emotions first, data second, and I'm data first, emotion second. Two different cultures, two different ways of looking at things, two different perspectives, breakdowns on both sides. Easy as pie to get along if we understand it from that perspective and stop saying that these people are this, these people lack that.